I'd like to welcome the school board candidates to our forum. Edina Chinese Association is a 501c3 nonprofit organization aiming to save the Chinese American in Edina. There are currently about 200 families in Edina and growing. Traditional Chinese culture value education tremendously, and it is an excellent public school system that attracts many Chinese families to Edina. Therefore, the Edina district development is on the top list of each family. And this is why that we have this forum. It's due to the increasing enthusiasm among ECA members on the future of the Edina school district. So I'm going to talk about the forum format today. So the forum format will start with a 1-minute opening remark from each candidate. And I'm going to just ask, we're going to follow the order from Linda to Lou. And then after that, we will have 6 selected questions. And these questions we get inputs from our community. And each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. And we will actually have a very advanced random picker here, so we'll pick the order randomly. And at the end, each candidate will have 1 minute to give a closing statement. And we'll follow the reverse order of the opening remarks. And after that, we'll have the open discussion, and welcome the audience to come up to directly talk with each of the candidates if they are interested. And just one word for the audience, just to keep the forum going smoothly, I would like to ask the audience to hold your applause and questions to the end and to the open discussion. Okay, so we can start. So let's start the opening remarks, and we'll start.
Linda is not well today, so her voice is very weak. So she's asked if I would read her opening statement. I hope that's all right with everybody. My name is Linda Freedy. I spent my childhood in both urban, inner-city schools and rural schools. I come from a family of very limited means. School was always my sanctuary, and I was inspired by teachers who pushed me to dream big. I was the first person in my family to attend college and graduated with high honors. My husband and I moved here 30 years ago to take advantage of excellent schools. Edina Public Schools were strong partners with us on our sons' educational journeys. We made sure they brushed their teeth and did their homework, and we trusted that their teachers, coaches, and community mentors would reinforce our message of striving for excellence every step of the way. Our oldest son is now a cardiologist at Duke University. Our other son graduated from West Point and piloted Apache helicopters. He's now in the MBA program at Harvard University. Not bad for the grandchildren of a Gary, Indiana steelworker. Like each of you, we understand the importance of hard work and a rigorous education to reach one's full potential. As a teacher in Edina, I was privileged to collaborate with extraordinary colleagues, many of whom have become lifelong friends. I understand and have worked with students from all backgrounds and all educational levels, and believe that our #1 priority must be academic rigor and growth for every student.
Hey, Lenny.
Thank you for hosting this forum. I want to give you a little bit of background about myself so that when I'm answering questions later on, you've got that background. I was raised by a special education teacher who stressed opportunity through education and giving back to the community so that others would also have opportunity. Those values have driven my actions and my desire to be on the school board. I'm married with 3 children. My oldest child went to Edina Public Schools from kindergarten through high school. Is currently in an MBA program at Wharton. My next oldest also went to Edina from kindergarten through high school, graduated from Yale, and is a developer at a startup company. My 3rd child is in 11th grade at the high school and is doing very well. I'm an attorney with a focus on business litigation. I spend my time answering people's questions and giving guidance. My wife is a neurosurgeon practicing in St. Paul. In addition to the work that I've done with the school district, I've volunteered in many different capacities. I've tutored academic triathlon. I've hosted multiple different teaching assistants from Normandale Elementary. As a child of a special education teacher and a parent of children who have done well in school, I understand what we need to do to provide for the kids in our district. As an active volunteer and a board member in Edina, I'm aware of the needs in our community. Thank you.
Jenny?
Hi, my name is Janie Shaw. My husband and I have two sons in the district. One is in 5th grade at Highlands and one is a freshman at Edina High School, currently taking advantage of the enriched and gifted offerings that we have there. I have a business background. I worked for United Airlines and Northwest Airlines for many years. My roles there included the implementation of a revenue management tool, which basically took mass amounts of data and turned it into usable and actionable information. I worked to lead a service standards project for the merging of two major carriers. My team there would work to identify, value, and develop metrics for hundreds of customer touchpoint experiences. And I also managed the domestic and brand recovery advertising after September 11th. These, along with other roles, have all resulted in a proven track record of building bridges, collaborating, and driving solutions. I also bring 14 years of trusted experience in our school district to this role. I've been heavily involved in our schools in both a parent leadership capacity as well as working at Highlands Elementary in a math and science curriculum support position. For the last 2 years, I've also been a parent mentor on one of our Edina FTC robotics teams. I'm proud to say that my work here has revolved around building relationships with students, families, schools, and administration to support education in Edina and help find creative solutions when things like funding become a barrier to innovative and enriched education. And I hope in my role as a board member that I can continue this work.
Sarah?
I'm Sarah Pasloff, and my husband, who is an Edina graduate, and I have two kids, both in the high school, a freshman and a senior. And I just wanted to share a little piece of my family background with you. My great-great-grandfather, William Edward Macklin, was born in 1860, the son of an Irish immigrant. But through hard work and an excellent education, he became a doctor by the age of 20. He was also raised to believe in serving others. And at the age of 26, he became a medical missionary doctor in China. He served in Nanking for 20 years and built the Nanjing Drum Tower Hospital, which is still operating today and is affiliated with the Nanjing University Medical School. Amazingly, in 2012, Jimmy Carter unveiled a bronze statue of my great-great-grandfather to commemorate the hospital's 120th anniversary, with many of my cousins standing by. His legacy of hard work, good education, and service to others, I believe, lives on in his descendants, including myself. That's why I have been honored and privileged to serve on the Edina School Board and have been 100% devoted to my work as a board member. By listening to my constituents, by asking the hard questions that need to be answered, and by pushing for data to help ensure that we are making thoughtful decisions on behalf of your children. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lou Danny, a proud Edina graduate from the year 2013, and after that I went on to attend Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York, where I graduated with a biomedical engineering degree in just 3 years while playing Division I hockey. After that, I moved back to Edina, primarily because I was getting married and wanted to start a family young. And I didn't take into consideration the dropping or the decline in ranking in Edina schools, and I never thought that would be a problem. So after moving back, settling down, speaking with my neighbors and students, I couldn't help but think to myself, what happened to the Edina I once knew and loved? So yeah, we had an amazing year with our band, robotics program, as well as winning more state tournaments than any other year prior. But from US News, we dropped from 1st to 10th, and that's a lagging indicator. So I figured to be proactive for my son and my other son, who's on the way due April 2nd, I want them to be Hornets, and I figured that I should run for school board to do something. So that's why I'm running, and I want to give back to Edina what Edina gave to me, and I want to make sure that we're on top for years to come. Thanks.
Thank you. Today, and I'll give you the hard question, number one, so you need to listen very carefully. I tried to read it clearly, but if you are not clear with what I'm asking, please ask again. So, thank you. So we were actually, for the questions, we were taking random order from the candidates. So, you want for that?
So the first question is, Edina School District's ranking has been declining in recent years. What do you think is the primary cause? What can we learn from other districts? How do you plan to change the situation? Please be specific on your plan and the metrics. Sarah Pasla.
Well, it is true that our rankings have been declining, and as for the cause, that's a good question. Many of us on the board, myself as a primary person, have been asking, why is this happening? Show me the data so that we can look at data and align it to when other changes were made in the district, whether it be curriculum, a new learning tactic, or other things going on. We need to be able to correlate those changes to the declining test scores. On top of that, we need to be learning from other districts who made decisions in their districts, like say a Minnetonka or a Wayzata, some of our own competitors, and look at the things that they're doing that are successful. We may be competitors technically, but I believe we can learn from our competitors who we know are doing well. As for the data and how we take a look at that, we also need to take a look at when we see indicators. And as Lou said, there are lagging indicators. For example, our MCA scores, and I specifically looked up the Asian population before I came in terms of math proficiency. Our proficiency is holding, but in the math scores that were presented to us within the Asian population, we saw the first time real decline in targeted growth rates. And so I believe that is a red flag that could indicate when we get to the MCA test next time that we're not going to see that proficiency level because it's a lagging indicator. So I believe that we need to be looking into these data points and making sure that we are reacting to them with clear information and making the right decisions for all of our kids.
Lou Nanny.
That's a good question. So for the why, I wholeheartedly believe that we fell into a state of complacency because we were first for basically 50 years. And then we became test subjects from personalized learning, which really has not shown in any public school of significant size to work. So I personally believe that Edina should never be a test subject. We should only implement what's tried and true and proven. Also, to tie into that, there's been a mass exodus of resident students, and of, I think, in 2017, 399 students inside the Edina school system left the school system, and we're at a 15% open enrollment ratio, which statewide, I think, is an average of about 8.2. Also, to go along with the mass exodus is politics in the classroom. It's just divisive in there, and I feel like, school's for teaching, and that just bleeds into our students' test scores, and it's to the detriment of the students themselves. So in order to change that, I'm going to say we're never to be allowed to be a test subject from something like personalized learning. We only should be implementing what's tried and true, and we should follow the metrics, follow the data, and make sure that everything from here on out is proven.
Really close, Linda, or it won't work.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'll try to say as much as I can with as few words as possible. I agree. I think there's two things. A bit of complacency. I agree with whoever said that. Also, I think there was kind of among some people an unwillingness to believe that our scores were dropping. My particular interest is in growth numbers, and those are the ones that are the most worrisome for me. Because I believe that we need to take all students, however they come to us, and grow them. And currently, we're growing the children at the bottom the least, which is not okay. Because, right? I mean, it's just that because children who are achieving the lowest actually have the most to grow. So the fact that they're growing the least is problematic. I believe we must absolutely commit to having a broad spectrum of courses, the most rigorous honors courses. We cannot lose our commitment to high-level courses for those who can use them, but we also can improve our intervention courses. I was an intervention teacher, and we have outstanding intervention teachers throughout our schools. However, the services are choppy. They're not consistent from school to school, and some of the training opportunities aren't available for some of the intervention teachers that we have. Also, some of the way we implemented some of our new curriculum didn't use best practices, and I want to commit to that in the future.
Oh, yeah, I got one.
What I do know is that, actually, if you look at the high level, we are holding steady in some areas. And I recognize that some scores have declined, but I don't look at that personally as something that we need to sound alarm bells over. There are quite a few reasons that can cause that as a district we have to take ownership over. We know that there is something called an implementation dip that happens when we introduce new curriculum into the schools. And that dip happens when we do not support our teachers with enough time to get up to speed on that curriculum, and when we do not support them with enough materials to do that. I think at certain levels, our test scores are falling because kids are no longer incentivized to take those tests. We found last year when our high school students were taking the science MCAs, and we had teachers that incentivized them to say, hey, if you do well on this test and you show us that the standards I've taught you align, our curriculum aligns with what the state is giving us as standards, then that counts as your final exam grade. And lo and behold, they did great. So when we have students that we overload with a lot of, they have activities, they have rigorous courses, and I think those are fantastic. And when we throw a test on top of them, without them having a clear understanding of what that means to us as community members, we run that risk of being, them not performing. I also think that initiative fatigue is a problem. We have new school start times, new buses, new classrooms. We have all of that, which all can lead to a dip in test scores as well.
Lady Violent Freedom, of course.
So I think we need to distinguish between whether the district has changed in terms of its excellence as opposed to changed in terms of certain MCA scores. And so if you look at the dip that people are referring to, it is a dip in MCA scores. And if you want to know the cause, there's multiple factors that could have come into play. We don't know the cause, but here are some factors that you can take a look at. Our demographics have changed. So the percentage of students that we have that are English language learners has increased. The percentage of students who are free and reduced has increased. The percentage of students that are Hispanic has increased. Those groups historically don't do as well. Other changes, we've adopted a new math program because we found that our math program didn't align well with the state standards. So we would expect that with the new math program, our scores will go up again in math. We've adopted a new reading program. So those are sort of, if you want to look at the cause on MCA, you can look at that. Now let's flip it the other way. Our ACT scores continue to be the top of the state. So when we talk about excellence, our ACT scores continue to lead. They'll flip from year to year, whether it's us first or Wayzata first or Minnetonka first. But year after year after year, our ACT scores are top. 95% or more of our students are taking ACT. Our AP scores continue to be very high. We have more AP scores, more AP exams taken than any other school in the state. Wayzata is not near us, Minnetonka is not near us. These are all areas of absolute excellence that we continue to provide. And we are providing opportunities for our high learners. What we need to do is we need to start to look at intervention for the people who are struggling. We need to look at summer learning loss. We need to basically say, which is who's not performing, and work on that group, but it's not our advanced learners.
Okay. That EPS is facing, and list these two and tell us why these two are the biggest challenges. What are your plans to address them? Thank So, Sarah, you're lucky. So, you're still the first one. Sarah, pass it.
Okay, I think there's two areas, and I'm starting to sound like a broken record because I've said this at many forums. I feel that academic excellence and how we're going to use data to make sure that we're ensuring academic excellence are the two areas that I think are really challenges in our district. And as we've worked on the new strategic plan, those have been, both items have been things that we've been very focused on. We want to continue to ensure that we are providing the best education we can for all of our kids. And that means no matter where they are on the spectrum. So within our plan, we talk about academic rigor. We talk about providing advanced academic opportunities for all students. We talk about ensuring that kids are ready for their next level. We need to make sure that we actually put metrics into place and a clear implementation plan so that we know as a board that when we send this off to our administrators to implement, that they're doing the right thing. And how do we do that? It has to be with good data. It has to be with metrics that we all agree to. Not only as in our administration, but via the board representing the community. What statistics, what data are we going to look at to know that the newest curriculum or a new initiative is actually working for our kids? Is it just MCA scores? Is it MAP scores? Is it AP, ACT? Because AP and ACT, you can get tutoring, and a lot of our kids do that. So the core academics that are going on, I want to have metrics that are showing the board and ensuring that what's going on in the classroom is effective.
Lenny Wallen Friedrich.
So, as I said in answer to the last question, the biggest challenge that we have is raising the percentage of students that are showing themselves to be proficient. Even though we are incredibly successful academically, we still have 20 to 25% of our kids who are not showing themselves to be proficient. So our number one challenge is to work with those group of kids while maintaining the programs that we currently have that are available for the students that are excelling. So we can maintain our AP programs, we can maintain our honors classes, and while we're doing that, we then have to say we need to do a better job on our intervention. We need to look at pre-kindergarten programs so that we can reach kids who we could pretty much identify and say they're likely to struggle. We need to look at summer learning loss. Not every family has the ability to provide learning opportunities during the summer. And so we find that some kids will drop back over the summertime. So we need to take a look at providing extra summer opportunities for them. So those are all within the proficiency area. And by the way, if you do that, then all of a sudden our MCA score will go up and the school system as a whole will match what our high end is doing. The other thing that exists is that we have an incredibly successful high school, but it also is a stressful high school. So the second area I would look at is sort of what I would call mental health and wellness. And I think there are areas that we can make changes to the structure that we have so that to ease the tension on some of the kids and actually give them more opportunity to take more classes. Thank you.
Linda Friedrich. Oh, you got it.
My answer is very similar to Sarah's answer on this question, but adding another piece to it. I know that part of the conversation that I've had with district officials is that they're concerned about money. So in a conversation with our superintendent, he said, Linda, he said if we focus on academics, we would need to not focus as much on arts programming and other things. And I think that if money is an issue, and I'm not on the board currently, so I can't see everything that they can see, but if money is an issue, we can figure that out together. I think we have to commit to putting our resources towards academics, and the community is affluent. We'll figure out ways to solve other problems. There are places within our systems where we can, if busing would be an issue, an opportunity for some savings, because we bus more children than we need to. A lot of the kids who live really close to school are being bused, and we don't need to bus as many of them. It's very expensive. Or we could have a pay model, a fee model, whatever. Anyway, if money is an issue, we need to make sure that we orient our resources towards academics. Also, in hearing everyone talk, I know everyone, you do have two current board members here. If I were to be able to join the board, I would want to encourage any board member who would be 4 of them to agree to put all data on the table to make it transparent so that everyone, including everyone here, can see everything. So that we truly can, we don't need to wonder where it's working, but we can see where it's working and where it's not working.
Thank you. Jenny Shaw.
Thank you. I think, I believe that the most broad-reaching challenge right now is going to be coming to alignment on our strategic direction. I think I see a lot of familiar faces that were at the strategic planning forum the other night, and I think we still have some work to do to truly committing to a set of priorities, which means asking all of us some tough questions and making some tough decisions. But when we don't have that really clear set of things that we stand for, and we try to stand for and prioritize everything, we run the risk of not being able to deliver well on anything for our kids, and that's not where we want to be. I think as a district, I've mentioned before that I feel like we suffer from a little bit of initiative fatigue, where we've all been through a lot of changes in our schools. I think coming up with a clear set of priorities is what's going to allow us to focus on what we really need, like creating systems for teachers and staff to use the right pieces of data and student insights to drive interventions in a timely manner. I think another thing that's going to be a challenge for us and should be a priority, there's a lot of talk about using the right pieces of data, but for somebody who comes from private sector business, it's not always the data that is the most important, but it's the insights that we draw from the data. I think that starts with, the insight is what's going to start the conversation and show us where we need to make the changes. The piece of raw data is useful in some instances, but it's very limited in what we can actually do with it.
Lou Nanny.
Particularly, I think there's two issues, such as lack of academic rigor. We need to ensure that there's AP honors and traditional courses, basically making multiple paths for each and every student to reach their full potential. And kind of going back to the ACT scores, look, we pay thousands for tutors to get good ACT scores. I don't think that's a good indicator of how well our scores are. Whereas the MCAs, we don't pay anything for. So that's basically a product of how well the students are doing in class. And the next topic, I think, is declining enrollment in large class sizes. Look, you guys all moved here for the education system just as I moved back to the city for the education system. I think it's time we keep our residents in Edina rather than forcing them out to go public, such as Minnetonka or any sort of private school, because we all pay a very high price in taxes to live in Edina. It's time that we get our money's worth, I think.
Thank you very much. The third question will be long, so please listen carefully. So I will read it twice because the people in the back, they can't hear what I said. So I'll read first to you.
Yeah, here you go.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
The third question will be, EPS has put a lot of efforts to close the achievement gap, but we are losing academically advanced and gifted students to the neighboring public and private schools. Do you think if we should allocate more resources to keep this group of students in the district? If yes, what is your plan and how to gauge if we are meeting their needs? If not, why?
Can you repeat it?
Sure.
EPS has put a lot of efforts to close the achievement gap, but we are losing academically advanced and gifted students to the neighboring public and private schools. Do you think if we should allocate more resources to keep this group of students in the district? If yes, what is your plan to make that happen? And what is your gauge if we are meeting their needs? If not, why?
So in terms of the academics, I think that one of the problems we've had as a district is we have not been good at explaining what we offer to our advanced learners. So we haven't been able to explain very well that we have 2,400 EP exams that are taken, that we have scores that are very high. So what we've done as a board, for example, a couple of years ago, we did a study and we said that we needed to have gifted pullout for language arts. So the school board voted to allocate more money towards gifted pullout. Since then, we've looked at other particular things. A couple of years ago, there was an AP honors program that was presented by administration. And I supported that AP honors program. Unfortunately, it did not pass by the board, but that was a program I supported. that would have given us an AP Honors avenue for our kids. So what we need to do is we can actually use our current resources and use them in a way that's smarter, that will actually create additional opportunities. So for example, this year we have compacted science in the middle school. What that means is that our students can then take 3 years of science in 2 years. And by doing that, they can then accelerate through the science curriculum, take classes that are more advanced, and when they get to the high school, they'll either have an extra science class they can take, or they can potentially go work in the science field if that's what they're interested in. So it's a matter of using our dollars more smartly in terms of proceeding. So I would support, and I have supported, the compacted classes, the AP Honors system, and those are all things that we can do within our current budget that will increase the availability of high academic rigor for our kids.
Jenny Shaw.
Thank you. So this is actually a question that I think about quite often because I have a son who both takes advantage of gifted and enriched courses, but also has a learning disability, so sometimes falls in that gap. And what I've thought about, because a lot of our pathway has been, as Lenny mentioned, and I agree with what he's saying, we have a lot of opportunities in Edina, but I also see that if we use our funds strategically, we can, without allocating more money, create more opportunities for our kids. I think that the 8th grade or the middle school compacted science, I wish my son had taken advantage of that. I think that when we have dollars to spend, we should be using them to create more applied classes, so applied science courses. I would love for my son to have had an additional year in science, to have a course where he is actually applying his knowledge to a real world issue. That can be done in social studies, that can be done in English, that can be done in mathematics. I think instead of saying that we need to reinvent the wheel, we should be looking at saying within what we have now, what can we do to add opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, excellence in education starts by meeting the needs of all kids, not by taking away the opportunities for some. And this has caused the more gifted students to leave, to go private or to neighboring open enrollment schools such as Minnetonka. And I think we need to allocate more resources to keep them in. We have more other, which means janitors, non-licensed teachers, or community liaisons, than we do teachers in our school system. Whereas Minnetonka, it's completely flip-flop. So I do think we have to skim some of the fat off of that and pour more resources into teachers to decrease the class size and to basically make more paths so that each and every student can succeed to the best of their ability, not where they're lumped in. Because heterogeneous classes will always lead to homogeneous test scores. And I feel like we can definitely steward our money in the community and in the schools better to make sure that we have more teachers, more classes, and more options for our students to keep the smart kids in.
Linda Freedy.
Well, if I could talk, I would talk about this for an hour, because this is my thing. This is why I'm running for the school board. I actually don't, the premise of the question that we might be saying that we're doing a lot about closing the achievement gap, but actually the data that we can see is indicating that we're not. Before, when I told you that the kids at the bottom are growing the least, they're actually, that would indicate that we're not closing the achievement gap. So if we're not doing that, and we're not keeping the kids at the top end, that's to me alarming. So absolutely, my life's work was working with kids who needed extra help, but my own children were gifted. And there's also a lot of kids within our school system who weren't quote-unquote gifted, 99th percentile. However, they're very, very accelerated learners, and we need options for all of them. It's not just one tiny little small group, but it's all of them. So absolutely committing to meeting the individual learning needs of all kids, and that, what Lou was talking about with heterogeneous classrooms. I've done a lot of research on this issue. It's impossible, really, for a fifth grade, just seeing a fifth grade teacher having children from the 20th or the 15th percentile to the 98th percentile in the same classroom. It's impossible to do a good job with all of them. As they get into high school and older, everyone realizes that we're all just different. That's not bad or good. They are, and everyone deserves a teacher in front of them. Everyone deserves to be challenged. And I fundamentally disagree with the idea that if you're doing above grade level, you're okay, you're on your own. I absolutely disagree with that. My son would not be a scientist, researcher, cardiologist if someone didn't push him, and I'm grateful for the Edina teachers who did, and I want that for all of your kids as well.
Thank you. Sarah Pasloff.
Well, I have to say I agree with several things that have been mentioned. One of Lou's points, which I actually was going to address right away, is that the approach that we've been taking for closing the achievement gap, I don't believe is working. And with the mic in my hand, when you want to close a gap, you want to bring the bottom up to meet the top. And I believe that we haven't been focusing on that. We need to rise all boats to the top. All kids deserve to grow, but not at the expense of any other group. And so, yes, I want to keep advanced learners in our district. I believe the fact that Edina is known for excellence, is known for education and commitment to it, that's why people move here. People move here and they want their kids to get a good education, and their kids show up to school wanting to get a good education. But we have to offer consistency across the board. Consistent honors courses, 6-12. We don't have a consistency right now. We lack an honors course in 7th grade for science, in 8th grade for social studies, and then 9th and 10th grade for English. We do not have a language arts course that is an honors level course. Now, Lenny mentioned that there was talk of adding an AP course, but it was called AP Seminar, and it was not related directly to a language arts course. And I think enough of the board wanted a different type of course. And so I was not in support of an AP Seminar, because what I would like is a class for our 10th grade students to actually have an enriched or honors level language arts course. So absolutely, we need to stay focused on all kids, and that's how we raise everyone up.
Okay, thank you.
So the fourth question actually is kind of related to the previous one, and it's also related to the Edina Public Schools 2020-2025 strategic plan.
Okay?
So the EPS 2020-2025 strategic plan drafts leads academic excellence and rigor as the #1 core value, and its mission to educate each individual to their full potential. What is your understanding of these statements? What are the metrics that you think that we should use to measure the success? It's a long question, I'll repeat one more time. The EPS 2020-2025 strategic plan drafts lists academic excellence and rigor as the #1 core value, and its mission to educate each individual to their full potential. What is your understanding of these statements? What are the metrics that you think that we should use to measure the success? Thank you.
So, when we took a look at the strategic plan, we basically said that over the last few years, some of what's been missing is a focus on academic excellence. And not critical of the prior plan, but the words weren't in there. And so we all said, so we want to add academic excellence so that that becomes a focus point. Doesn't mean we're going to give up on other aspects of what we've been doing before, but it does say we need to raise the level of achievement for all of our students. And so if you have a student that can achieve at a certain level, that's full potential for that child. That's what we're trying to push that child towards, or give them the opportunity to obtain. When it comes to metrics, I think that there are multiple metrics that we can look at. We can look at ACT scores, and I do disagree with Lou about how much money is spent, because every district spends money on their kids studying for ACT. So it isn't comparable. We should look at AP exams. We should look at college readiness. And if you look at where Edina is, we are ranked #1 in niche.com in college readiness. We're ranked above Minnetonka. We're ranked above Wayzata. In fact, we send more kids to Ivy League schools than Minnetonka does. So other aspects, other metrics we should look at is, are they ready to function in a diverse environment? Because our kids are not going to graduate and stay in a single environment. They're going to be required to work with a lot of different people. So I would look at world readiness. I would look at college readiness. I'm out of time.
Linda Freedy.
Well, I disagree with what Lenny just said on one level. 12 years ago when my son's class, my older son graduated, none of his friends nor he ever had tutors to tutor them onto the ACT, and he got a 36. So that shouldn't be necessary. Lots of people, middle class people in this community shouldn't be spending thousands of dollars to tutor ourselves to a good ACT score. And again, he wasn't unusual in that no one I knew. So something that hasn't, maybe it is for some people, but it shouldn't be necessary. We used to have baselines built in for all kids. They would do a thing called a COGAT. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. It was a baseline test when you were in 2nd and 4th grade and again in 8th grade. And so my job as an intervention teacher was always, you must have a child meet what we would think their potential would be, maybe more of like an IQ test kind of idea. And if they're meeting or exceeding what you would expect out of them, then we're doing our job. However, if they're not achieving what we might expect, then that's on us to fix. Somewhere along the way, they stripped that out of there. I don't know why the decision was made, but I would push to have a baseline exam put in, because we're guessing right now as to what the potential of kids is. So that would be a measure, again, another measurement is a baseline COGAT for all kids. I don't have more time. Again, and a commitment for all kids to have teachers in front of them. There's nobody here that gets to decide for the rest of us that you're good enough if you're this high. Everybody needs to be growing, so.
Sarah Pasloff.
All right, as someone who's been part of working on the current strategic plan, I was actually just having this discussion with somebody the other day about the mission statement and why I believe it's actually very clear. It's shorter than our last mission statement, but it's to the point. It is about each individual to reach their full potential. Our kids are all individuals, and we can't assume that they're all going to have equal outcomes, but they should have equal opportunity. And then if you look at our first core value of academic excellence and rigor, we talk about educational excellence. Again, we talk about their individual needs. And here's a big one, high expectations and challenging appropriate coursework for all students. And so when it talks about the measurements, these are a couple things that I think we can continue to look at, but need to expand. Obviously, MAP scores is a great way to take a look at where kids are at and if they're growing enough. And we obviously have MCA scores, which is a state test, but there's also day-to-day work, and that includes homework. And we have kind of shifted our idea of the value of homework in our secondary courses, where it's only 10% of the grade. And that lack of looking at the homework every day could lead or could allow a child to slip through the cracks before we catch it when it comes to test time. I totally agree with Linda on the COGATs, that we need to bring those back. My kids both had those. And honestly, it's disappointing to see when you look at your child's scores and then you look at their performance in the classroom and nobody's catching it. When you have a child who says they should be in the 95th percentile and yet their scores in their coursework aren't showing that and no teacher is calling that out, that is letting down the child and it's unacceptable.
I mean, each individual can't reach their full potential if homework's only 10%. Like, I went to an engineering school and homework was 40%. We had basically projects to make sure you're keeping up with the work. And tests was a one-time deal, not allowing for retakes, and it was 20%. So you had to be keeping up with the work, otherwise you'd be going 160 hours straight before you took an 8-hour exam. So I don't think we're doing it right to allow for each individual to reach their full potential. And it's certainly not done through personalized learning, because that's asking one teacher to teach in 30 different styles, and that's just never going to work. So how to measure? Up here on the plan it says our current weaknesses to address are a drop in key academic performance measures such as MAP growth, MCA scores, and some ELL and special ed proficiency rates. And then on number C, or letter C, it says a perceived need for improvement in academic quality delivery of rigorous curriculum and key programs. And that key perceived is where it really throws me off, because that's a qualitative aspect, and we're not doing too hot in qualitative or quantitative aspects. So I mean, we have to address the downward trend in academic key performance, and this is done by data. And we have to base all of our decisions off of data.
Okay. Annie Shaw.
Thank you. I think one of the important things to think about, I was actually really glad to see this as part of the strategic plan. I've got a kid, there's a difference between proficiency and full potential. And I think sometimes that gets lost in our district. If you're reaching proficiency, you are reaching a base standard. But I know for one of my kids, his full potential is well above that. And he was also a child who benefited from the COGAT test early in his career, and I would love to see it come back, because I would love for somebody to have seen what his potential looked like and kind of helped him through. Luckily, he had amazing teachers that saw it in the middle school and helped push him up, so he is reaching more of his full potential in gifted and enriched classes. I think that the metrics that we need to use for something like this are a test like the COGATs. I wasn't a part of the decision to get rid of that test, but I would be interested in seeing something like that come back. I think for us to reach that place, though, we do need to start with getting learners to their proficient level. We need to start there so that we can push kids past that. I actually am going to disagree with Lou on the personalized learning and on the 90-10 or 80-20 homework thing, because what I have seen is that actually is an opportunity for teachers to catch when students don't know the material and therefore are not moving past that material. So students have an opportunity when they're not getting it in their homework to learn the material before taking a test on it.
Okay, thank you. So this comes to our fifth question.
Actually, it's a tough one too. Weed and vaping are very prevalent right now in the EPS, especially in the high school. So what is your plan to improve the situation?
Can you say that again?
Weed, vaping. So that's a, I've heard a lot about that. So I'm not surprised this question has come from the community. So. Linda Freedy.
Well, we have policy, obviously. Policy needs to be followed, and guiding kids towards appropriate behavior. I think it's better for a child to be caught in school, actually, when they're doing something they shouldn't be, than if we don't address it and they get out into the world and they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. I think I've heard lots of stories. I don't have children in the high school, so I've heard lots of stories of kids, anecdotes about kids being afraid to go into certain bathrooms at certain times because there are people doing things they shouldn't be doing. That's not okay. Also, kids who are doing the things aren't in class doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's not okay either. So we need to follow make sure kids follow the policy. Now, does it need to be punitive? No, guiding them towards appropriate behavior. Again, I think it's actually better for the child to be caught, so to speak, doing things they shouldn't be doing at school rather than waiting until they get out into the world doing things they shouldn't be doing. So fix it there, follow the policy, make sure everybody's on board, and make those spaces safe for all the other kids who want to go to the bathroom when they want to go to the bathroom. So.
Sarah Pasloff.
Well, my answer is relatively simple on this one. I personally just have zero tolerance for this. It's against the law on so many levels, but the bottom line is we have to have, as Linda said, clear policy, clear rules though, that our kids understand that we will not tolerate this. And in fact, one of the things that I just learned about recently is with the vaping, separate from traditional weed or pot, within vaping now they can get cylinders that have the properties of pot in them, and that's even worse for our kids because it's stronger and faster and so bad. So beyond the policy though, we discussed this actually as a board this past year, and our principal came to us at the high school and wanted to utilize, with the help of our resource officers, dogs that could sniff and smell these attributes and then catch our offenders. And we as a board were able to pass that we would allow this in our parking lots, but only outside of the building. I would actually support stepping that policy up and allowing this within the school. Now, obviously, we would accommodate kids' needs, people who are afraid of dogs, but it does allow us to come into the school, check backpacks, check things, and check the other ways that they could be hiding this so that they can be caught. Because Linda's exactly right. Being caught can be actually a gift to that child because we can stop it early and get them off that road to destruction, in my opinion.
Jenny Shaw.
I'm going to echo a lot of what Sarah and Linda said. I think that the first thing that has to happen is we need to continue to educate our children on what vaping does, if it's tobacco vaping or whether it's THC vaping. I think that that also means that we have to have hard conversations at home so that kids understand where your family stands on it. Inside the school, we need to have clear expectations and very well-defined consequences for the kids. At our house, we call it kind of a fair warning. You've had fair warning, and when you do not follow that rule, there is a consequence, and there's no questions about it. There's no negotiating. It is zero tolerance. I, like Sarah, would also support the use of either a drug sniffing dog or another deterrent within the school building because I think those buildings need to be a safe place. And we've all, as a community, dedicated a lot of time and tax dollars to making sure that they are safe places. I think that at some point, it is good to support kids who have a problem, but at some point, we have to agree that there are punitive consequences for these actions. They are criminal charges, and I want my child to know that if that decision is made, that there is a consequence. It doesn't mean they're a bad kid or they're a bad person and they're not going to have a fulfilling life, but there are consequences to their actions.
Lou Nanny.
Yeah, this is obviously something we can all agree on, that, weed and vaping should not be allowed in our school, and we have to have strong disciplinary actions to combat any time that they're caught. And I, like essentially everyone else, would be completely fine with drug sniffing dogs in the schools because so long as we catch it, then we can stop the problem from bleeding out and deterring other students' learning abilities in school. So it's obviously something that it's not just the individual that they're harming themselves, they're harming the other students around them as well, whether they don't want to go to a certain bathroom or if it just smells in the classroom. It's to the detriment of everyone in the school.
Lady Warren Friedman.
There's not much left for me to say. Everybody's already covered it. But I think the first place we have to start is educating our kids as to the risks and dangers and the fact that it's illegal. The second thing we need to do is educate the parents. And here's where it gets a little complicated. I just attended a talk by the school resource officer who said that if you're smoking weed, for example, in the old traditional method, the smell lingers. If you're going to vape, it's gone in 15 seconds. And so the ability to know what your child is doing, as you could have 30 years ago, is much different. So we need to educate our kids, educate our parents. The high school has set up a sort of a confidential reporting system, which has been helpful because students who will see vaping in a room can confidentially report it. Unfortunately, they also report things that are unrelated, so they do waste a little time. But it's a step in the right direction. This is a matter of setting clear expectations, telling students that it's not acceptable, letting parents know it's not acceptable, and then enforcing our policies. And I think that if we do all those things, that will continue to reduce the existence of vaping and drug use within our schools.
Thank you. Then it comes to our last question, the sixth question. So it's a short one again.
What are the best metrics to evaluate a teacher's job? Please list the top 2 and explain. What are the best metrics to evaluate a teacher's job? Please list the top 2 and explain.
All right, just so that everybody knows, both my mother, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, I have lots of teachers in my family, and actually I've debated this with my own mother. But I think evaluating teachers is critical, but because of unions and because of contracts, there's a lot of pushback on this. Our legislators have tried to write law that would help to make sure that we are evaluating our teachers more thoroughly, but it tends to become ineffective once implemented into the school system. Now, I'm not going to say that all teachers should fall on the sword if they don't have great test performance by all students, because like I said, we can't guarantee equal outcomes. But I do think we should be looking for those indicators of those teachers who are really doing well in their classrooms, and maybe the teachers who aren't, and then we have to figure out what is that teacher who's really excelling her students or his students, and implement those things across the system. But we do need to be able to do this, and the union has to work with us. Most teachers are not there to do any harm. They are there to help our kids. They care about children. It's the union that gets in the way and stops us from being able to do the things that we need to do to ensure that our teachers are offering and doing the best in their classrooms. And some of the systems that we have in place, before I run out of time, some of our teachers don't even get reviewed but every 3 years. I'd like to see this more consistent and in an effort to work cooperatively with our teachers so that it's best for our children.
Jenny Shaw.
So I agree with Sarah in part on that. I think that it is important for teachers' job performance to reflect the growth of students. I think that I wouldn't necessarily use only a standardized test, but understanding that each student is growing within their day-to-day grades, within their summative grades, their end-of-year grades, there must be growth. They must have the ability to identify those areas where kids need to grow. They must also, I think as a part of that, it would be interesting to see a statistic that shows which teachers are identifying students for intervention, whether that be intervention because they're not meeting a standard or intervention because they are going above and beyond the standards. I think another important thing to find a metric to put behind this is what is the teacher's level of engagement and innovation in their teaching for our children? Are we having teachers that are just teaching to the standards and not really changing much, or how can we recognize teachers who are actually coming up with these new ideas, coming up with new experiments in science class, coming up with new ways to review a novel? I think that when we put all of those pieces together, that's when we start to recognize who our highest achieving teachers are and give them the support they need.
Well, I am a teacher, or now I'm still a tutor, but I was a teacher for 15 years. Individual growth for kids, no matter how they come to you, you have a responsibility, and that's what I live to do, and I feel as though I did well. Making sure the kids that are in your care are all growing, having really hyper awareness about what each of them needs, and figuring out creative ways to solve problems, bringing in additional resources when necessary for certain kids. One of the things that I as a teacher in our district, that concerns me is, frankly, administrators don't spend very much time in the schools, and frankly, principals don't spend very much time in the classrooms. And as someone mentioned already, literally you can be a teacher and really only have a principal come in and watch you literally once in a year to really see what you're doing. We do have a system of each teacher has a coach, but that's a very structured environment where you know they're coming, and some teachers, completely rework what they're going to do on the day when they're going to have the coach, and so it's a bit of an artificial situation. I do believe that administrators need to spend more time in the classrooms, not just making sure that everyone looks like it's pretty and everyone's working, but to really get down in the weeds and spend time. Now, how they figure that out, how to spend more time, I don't know, but I will tell you that my colleagues and I, or colleagues that I still have that are in the schools, literally in some cases don't even know who the administrators are because they've never seen them. So they need to spend more time in our schools.
I personally believe that this is twofold. I think that they should be basically measured quantitatively and qualitatively. So quantitative would be tests, MCAs, math, etc., standardized testing, as well as previous years, the student, whatever their grades were, if they were an A in math and then they dipped to a C, and those match up with the qualitative data, which would be something like an anonymous test at the end of the year. then I feel like, yes, teachers should be held accountable, and they should. You know, we have to track students year to year to ensure that they're on the same trajectory or going up. And then if, you know, something matches up with that student saying, I was not basically taught the way that, or the group of students wasn't taught accordingly, and then that matches up with their test scores, I think that we have to hold the teacher accountable. And to that end, I feel like we should have random drop-ins from the principal. We should have, you know, monthly, quarterly reviews, because as a hockey player, we either got chewed out or praised after each and every game, and I knew exactly what the coach was thinking. So if the administrators are so far off from the teachers and they hardly, seldom see them, then I feel like we really have an issue, and we have to make sure that there's an open and constant open dialogue.
Lady Water Friedman.
So as a district, we have an alt-comp program in which we have peers who go in to review teachers. So our teachers do get reviewed. And I have to say to yourself, so when you have a review of a teacher, what's the purpose of it? And so I'm strongly in favor of maintaining the peer review, because what the peer review does is it points out areas where the teachers could improve their performance. So again, the evaluation of a teacher, the first goal is improvement. That's goal number one. And that we do have a process in place, and I think we just need to continue to pursue that. If I'm going to start to measure the success of that teacher beyond the improvement of the teacher in the way that they are teaching, I would look at, are the students in your classroom growing? And you'd have to follow a cohort. You can't just take the classroom without going back and seeing where they were the year before and sort of match, did they have growth last year or not this year, in which case we've eliminated one variable, and you know, it could be the curriculum, but it could be, you know, the teacher needs assistance. The other thing is, in addition to growth, I would take a look at other success measures for the students. And then the final thing is, we know that if teachers understand their students and know their students, the students will perform better. So the final thing is, do our teachers understand and know their students? And I think one of the things we put in the strategic plan was that there should be at least, you know, there should be a teacher that knows the student, and we've moved on from that. There should be multiple students that are known by multiple teachers.
Thank you very much for the answer the hard questions. I know it's hard. And finally, we come to the closing statement. So last time we started from Linda, right now we start with Lou.
Perfect. All right, well, thank you guys for sitting through that. So if elected, I will offer a unique set of experiences to the Edina School Board. As a recent graduate, I offer a student's perspective to the board. All of my K through 12 education was from Edina. I understand the challenges and stresses of today's Edina students. Challenges such as navigating social media, cyberbullying, which I've experienced, mental health, and balancing academics and extracurriculars. Edina needs a board that is broad and diverse in perspective, age, and in background. I will bring an energetic, analytical, and common sense approach to the school board. I'll ask the tough questions, demand student achievement data, and track those given outcomes, as well as set high expectations for myself, our students, teachers, and the administration. Let's get back to where we belong, and that's first. Ask for your vote November 5th. Thanks.
Thank you, by the way. I believe that all of our kids are Hornets first. We're not going to divide our kids into certain categories, because we need to look at students as individuals, as we're talking about in the strategic plan, and ensure that each one of them is growing to their highest potential. And I believe we do this by making data-driven decisions, asking questions, and representing the values, beliefs, and priorities of this community. And it's okay to disagree, it's okay to challenge, and it doesn't mean that you don't like the school district or that you don't like teachers. We can disagree and work all working together for what's best for our kids. And I believe that with my experience of 8 years on the board, that is critical to where we're going with our new board. We have over half of our board only has under 2 years of experience. So I think it's critical to have somebody on the board who understands where we've been and then where we're going, because you need to have that full view to be able to understand and work with the administration and work with the system to help us move forward.
Thank you all. Education is truly at the core of this community. It's both a point of pride for people who grew up here, but for others like myself and maybe many of you, it's the reason we chose this community and the reason we work so hard to give our kids these opportunities. I'm already doing the work in the district. I'm both in and working with our schools because I know that they offer something special, and my vision for the work that's done in our classroom is dynamic and it's intentional in meeting the needs of all of our students' futures. My vision is strategic, and it relies on having a rock-solid foundation of excellence in education. It relies on a school board who has both experience and a trusted partnership with our administration and community, and most clearly, an understanding of how their decisions impact the work being done in our classrooms. I have a proven track record in our district and in my professional career of building bridges, collaborating, and driving solutions. I have the experience and the trusted relationships needed to be successful in this role. The work I hope to do on the school board in the next 4 years will be focused on what produces the results we expect from this school district. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Our schools are about opportunity for our kids. As a district, we want our kids to have the best opportunity to succeed in school and after they're out of school. That means it's important that we have people on the school board that have experience, that understand the needs of the students, understand the needs of the parents, and understand the needs of the teachers. I have that experience. I've served on the school board for the last 8 years. The last 4 years, I've served as the school board chair at the selection of my peers on the school board. I'm an attorney. I analyze data. I'm familiar with our district. I've had kids that have gone K through 12. I've seen what they do when they graduate from here. We have to focus on understanding what we do well, and there is a lot we do well. And then we have to understand on those small pieces that we can make changes to improve, to bring everybody up. Thank you.
You want me to do it again? Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for hosting us today. Over the past year, I have attended or watched hundreds of hours of school board meetings and work sessions. I understand achievement data and have done extensive research on many educational issues that are relevant in Edina. Education is my lifelong passion. As an Edina teacher for 15 years, I dedicated myself to helping some of our community's most vulnerable students achieve in ways they never dreamed possible. In my job as an intervention math teacher, I used to tailor programs to suit their individual needs, which resulted in accelerated academic growth. I believe we need more transparency, more accountability, and that we must attach measurable metrics to everything we do to ensure that our outcomes match our intentions. We must also maintain and improve rigorous academic options for students across the academic spectrum. Most importantly, I am steadfastly devoted to the welfare and development of your children. I am ready to serve on the Edina School Board as a voice for parents, as well as students and teachers. You can learn more about my campaign at freebie4edinaschools.com. I ask for your vote on November 5th.
Okay, thank you for everyone. So, thank you both for all the candidates coming here, spending the precious time with us. And I hope, for all the audience here, you don't feel it's a big loss of your precious weekend time with the weather outside. So, now it's the time. Let's give all the candidates today a round of applause. Okay, thank you. So next we enter in this open discussion time. So for any audience who want to stay here, for any question,